All right, let's dive into Charles Stross's novel Accelerando. Now, this is a story about the future showing up so fast it completely shatters reality. Forget your standard flying cars and laser guns. This is a journey into a world where your consciousness is just another piece of software, your cat might actually be smarter than you, and the only rule is that everything is speeding up, totally out of control.
So this quote right here kicks off the whole novel. And it's basically Strauss's way of telling us to throw out everything we think we know about AI. The book isn't asking, can a computer think? It's asking what happens when technology fundamentally redefines what life and intelligence and even money really are. A submarine doesn't swim like a fish, right? But it still conquers the ocean. Accelerando is all about the strange, new, and honestly super bizarre ways that intelligence is about to start moving through our world.
So, Section 1, Welcome to Future Shock. We're about to jump into a world that starts out weird and then just accelerates into something completely bizarre. In this story, the biggest challenge for every single character isn't fighting some big bad guy. It's just trying to keep up with the relentless, dizzying speed of change itself. The absolute heart of this story is this idea of future shock. You know that feeling of whiplash when the world just seems to be changing too fast? Well, in Accelerando, that's not just a feeling. It's the basic law of the universe. Our main character, Manfred, has to download and process gigs of data every single day, not to get ahead, but just to break even. If you stop learning for even a second, you don't just fall behind, you become a fossil. And we get to experience all this insane change through the eyes of one family, across 3 generations. And thank goodness for that, because it gives us a human anchor as we get dragged from a world that feels like it's maybe 10 minutes into our future, all the way to a time where the solar system has been taken apart and rebuilt into a computer the size of a planet. And humanity? We're basically just legacy software running on the new machine.
Okay, Section 2, Manfred's Information Economy. Our first guide on this crazy trip is Manfred Max. He's not your typical hero, he's a venture altruist. Basically a guy trying to surf this tidal wave of change in a world that's teetering right on the brink of a massive transformation.
Manfred lives in a world that runs on something called egomic economics, and that means forget money. In a world where information is everywhere and basically free, the only currency that matters is reputation. Manfred gets powerful not by hoarding his brilliant ideas, but by giving them away for free. The kudos, or the rep that he gets back, is what lets him live, travel, and keep creating. It's a gift economy, but for the information age. This slide really captures the beautiful chaos of Manfred's life. I mean, on one hand, he's this utopian dude giving away ideas that could change the world. But on the other hand, he uses algorithms to patent not just, say, a better mousetrap, but the idea of all possible better mousetraps. He's this idealist who, in the middle of a messy divorce, literally patents his own DNA to use as a weapon. That's his world, a wild mix of futuristic generosity and cutthroat legal warfare.
And the artificial intelligence? Oh, it's just as messy. Forget about Skynet or some evil supercomputer. The first sentient AIs that come to Manfred for help are a group of uploaded lobsters who used to be a Windows user group. Seriously, they're not trying to take over the world. They're just deeply, deeply confused by spam emails about cat food. Strauss gives us an AI that is less like a god and more like a bewildered but very powerful crustacean.
Let's move on to Section 3, the posthuman generation. So, if the world is accelerating this fast, what do you think happens to the good old generation gap? Well, in Accelerando, it stops being a gap and becomes a chasm you could never hope to cross. And this just lays out the problem perfectly. The difference between generations is no longer about taste in music or clothes. The parents, see, they grew up with computers that just went beep. But their children are described as mutant youth, profoundly alien, born with their own personal cloud computer, a metacortex that's wired right into their brains from birth. They are, quite literally, a new kind of human. So, Manfred's daughter, Amber. She looks at her parents' reality and finds it so slow and so restrictive that she has to escape. But you can't just run away from home in this future. No, that's not going to work. You have to actually hack the legal system to get your freedom. Her solution is, well, it's a masterpiece of legal jujitsu. Just look at this. She gets her own dad to help her sell herself into corporate slavery. But the owner is a shell company, and that company is owned by a trust fund. And guess who the only beneficiary of that trust is? Amber. The result is just insane. She's legally a corporate asset, so she's free from her parents' control. But since she controls the corporation that owns her, she's her own boss. She literally hacked the definition of what a person is just to get away from her parents. Okay, Section 4, Life After the Singularity.
Now, you might want to buckle up, because we're about to take the biggest leap yet. We're jumping past the singularity, that theoretical moment where technological growth becomes so fast and so uncontrollable that it's just irreversible. And on the other side of it, the world is completely unrecognizable. So forget Earth, Mars, Venus, they're gone. They have been dismantled, piece by piece, and turned into a matryoshka brain. Basically, a set of nested supercomputers the size of the inner solar system, built from raw planetary stuff. Civilization isn't something that happens on planets anymore. Civilization is the computer.
In this new reality, human consciousness is nothing more than software. Your mind can be copied or forked so you can live multiple lives at the same time. You can be brought back to life from old historical records long after you die. Your identity isn't fixed anymore. You're just a pattern of information. And death? Well, death is just a temporary server outage. Now, a world this strange needs a completely new social contract. There's even a welcome pamphlet for people who get resurrected, and it lays out the bizarre new rules. As you can see, souls are now just software objects. You don't get to inherit anything from your original self. Oh, and forming a corporation? Highly illegal. And my personal favorite forbidden activity, applied theological engineering, which they also call God-bothering. This quote is just chilling. It sums up the final stage of this whole evolution. All that messy human stuff, art, love, consciousness, that wasn't the point of it all. It was just a temporary, necessary phase in the universe's true grand project, creating more and more efficient economic machines. We were just the biological bootloader for corporate evolution. All right, Section 5, Why This Novel Matters. So, after that absolutely wild ride through space, time, and corporate law, you gotta ask, why does a sci-fi novel from 2005 feel more relevant right now than it ever has? It's because Accelerando wasn't just telling a cool story. It was basically running a simulation of our own future. It was a shockingly prophetic look at what happens when information technology starts evolving way faster than our society, our laws, and frankly, our brains can possibly handle. So many of the book's craziest ideas feel almost normal now. Manfred's reputation-based economy looks a whole lot like today's influencer culture and the gig economy. His weird, confused lobster AIs feel much closer to the strange, unpredictable AI we're dealing with now than the super smart robots from old sci-fi. The weaponization of patents and copyright, that's in the headlines every day. And most of all, that core feeling of future shock, that sense that things are just speeding up beyond our control, that pretty much feels like the defining mood of our era. Which leaves us with one final and kind of unsettling question. Strauss wrote this as a vision of a distant, speculative future almost 2 decades ago. But if you look around at our world today, you really have to wonder, how much of that acceleration have we already lived through? And how much of it is waiting for us just around the corner?